Kia ora guys and welcome back to the Black Jersey. My name's Max, I'm the host over here at this channel, and a massive thank you to my patrons as I say at the start of every single video. I'll just remind everyone as well to like and subscribe to me if you enjoy the channel, as it kind of helps the algorithm to get this channel to grow, and I'm looking to hit 15k before the World Cup ends. Anyway, South Africa versus the All Blacks, the World Cup final selection time. I think we all know the vast majority of the selection is going to be. It's a final. The teams have spent 4 years preparing for this, and South Africa have had the same coaching staff essentially since 2018, so they're both relatively settled sides, these two teams. The thing is though, they've got a very, very interesting approach when it comes to taking on each other. They're well renowned for taking a few risks, I guess, when playing against each other, the All Blacks and the Springboks. For example, when the All Blacks played the Springboks in 2021, Ardie Savea got moved to 7 when Luke Jacobson returned to the second test, and Ethan Blackadder, for example, who's normally a blindside, he wore 7 against South Africa in the 100th test between the two nations. Cam Roigard's another one who's really proven himself for his Springboks. They used a 7-1 split at Twickenham and delivered the All Blacks their worst ever victory as a bit of payback for 2017 when we destroyed the Springboks by 57-0, which is South Africa's own worst ever losing margin. So it's very fitting these two teams are coming into the final, and both of these teams have conceded their worst ever losing margins to each other. The All Blacks are also the only side with a positive win ratio over South Africa, so whoever wins gets a 4th World Cup. They'll be the greatest team in the history of the professional sport. But as for how I think the teams are going to line up, for the All Blacks, they're obviously going to go for experience. We all know by now that Ethan de Groot, Cody Taylor and Tyrell Lomax, they're the first choice front row after Samaso Taukei'aho did gain a few minutes last year due to Taylor kind of having a bit of a fall off, but Taylor's well and truly back. As for the reserve front rowers though, well, Tamaiti Williams, Fletcher Newell, they didn't exactly get on the best at Twickenham, but they've since really just taken a lot of lessons out of that, and it wasn't helped by the fact that they were down to 7 players in the scrum, with Geordie Barrett ending up having to bind on the edge as a blindside flanker for the set pieces. So with those two really just giving a real good go at the Irish and absolutely just destroying Argentina, I think it's going to make sense for Dane Coles, as they did against the Irish, to, play his final test match in the World Cup final. If Dane Coles is set to play, this will be his 91st test, and with Williams having played just 7 tests, Newell having played just 13, I think it's going to make sense to have the old boy coming off the bench to support the newbies, as Taylor is already doing for Lomax and de Groot, who are by no means, spring chickens themselves. De Groot's 25, Lomax is 27. The locking duo as well, it's a bit of an interesting, bit of a conundrum, I guess, but all three of the options are very, very experienced players. What we saw was Sam Whitelock against Argentina. They wanted the most experienced player in the team to have as much game time as possible, and they were going off a Crusaders cohesion, but Brodie Retallick also started against Ireland, Sam Whitelock on the bench, so perhaps we could see Whitelock start, Retallick start. It's going to be interesting which one they go for, but my gut feeling says Whitelock, as they'll just want to send out the most experienced player for his final test for a big showdown. And the loose forwards, very well settled. I don't think I need to discuss that. Shannon Frizzell as the third lock at 6 as the blindside flanker. He's allowing Sam Cane and Ardie Savea to win a lot of turnovers, and because Dalton Papali'i, he covers all 3 of those jerseys, 6, 7, 8, he's obviously going to be remaining on the bench. Aaron Smith, Richie Mo'unga, Beauden Barrett, they're obviously going to complete the spine. Come on, guys. You're not just going to shove Will Jordan into the back for the one final game where he's only worn the 15 jersey for a single test in his career. And so what I think is going to happen here is, because Cam Roigard proved himself against South Africa last time, he was a real game breaker. His size was a very good advantage for sniping at the fringes of the breakdown. I think we might end up seeing Cam Roigard again. For other games where it's going to be pretty intense, a bit of expansive rugby, it made sense to go for Finlay Christie, but Cam Roigard, having been the only real source of points against South Africa and Twickenham, I think there's a good chance he's probably going to play again. As for the wingers, Mark Chilea, Will Jordan, Geordie Barrett, Rieko Ioane in midfield, they're also going to be pretty obvious selections for anyone that's been paying attention as of late. There is, though, it is a bit of an odd choice for the bench, because Simply put, Damian McKenzie off the bench against South Africa, he's not going to do much. Caleb Clark was used off the bench at Mount Smart and in Melbourne. He was real impactful, cleaning the rucks out wide, but with Leicester Fainga'a-Anuku more of a proven option off the boot, he'll be able to help out in the air quite a lot as England were really able to dominate South Africa in the air. So with Leicester Fainga'a-Anuku coming in to clean the rucks out wide, and do all that kind of stuff as well as obviously be a player with a boot and be a player who can jackal. I think there's a good chance we're going to see Leicester Fainga'a-Anuku on the bench over Damian McKenzie. While it is going to be tempting as well to pick David Havili, as there are rumours circling there's a weather forecast with rain for the World Cup final, but Havili has been injured, so with Leonard Brown having played 69 tests, I think that's probably more likely. As for how South Africa are going to go, guys, I don't think Manie Libbok's going to be playing. The way that they took him off in the 31st minute against England, that just reeks of a head coach who's not confident in his 10. And when you're a 10, you're struggling under the high ball, your forwards getting bullied up front in the rain. It's very, very difficult. And Manie Libbok, I don't think it's going to, be an easy thing for him to gain his confidence back after getting hooked off so early. Well, South Africa have done it time and time again against the All Blacks, hooking off the entire front row with a couple minutes until halftime, for example, with Joseph Dwepa getting hooked off at Mbabela, I think it was. No, that was Ellis Park Stadium there, sorry. But if that's the case, why was that only happening to one player? De Klerk and Leroux came on far later, so I think we are going to see Handré Pollard, Corbus Reinach as the 9-10 combination, with Faf de Klerk and Willie Leroux on the bench for a 6-2 split. But before we discuss why I think the 6-2 split's going to be happening, I'll first discuss the front row because it's very obvious that Stephen Kitsoff, Bongi Mbonambi and Frans Malherbe, pending of course all the off-field stuff that they're allegedly doing with Mbonambi, pending all that stuff goes through, they're obviously going to be starting for the Springboks. The lock's very well settled as well. While some people are thinking RG Snyman could come into the starting lineup and, get a bit of use, I'm not quite so sure about that because he has had a long period of injury, so I do think continuing to use Snyman as a real power forward off the bench when the opposition is starting to tire is a bit more strategic from the Springboks. Plus, there's a factor of not wanting to drop Eben Etzebeth, who is their most capped player in the current squad and their greatest lock of all time, in my humble opinion. The loose forwards very, very settled as well. Khaleesi is the captain, Du Toit is the blindside, and Vermeulen as the number 8. I don't think that's going to change. Well, some people have been saying, Dwayne Vermeulen a bit slower, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, man. Because simply put, if they are going to use the 6-2 split, it's probably not going to feature a second loose forward because Dion Fourie has not really been coming on to play hooker an awful lot. When he has been coming on for the last few minutes or so, he's been coming on as an open side flanker, coming on for Siya Khaleesi, with another player coming on for the likes of Vermeulen, Du Toit, or perhaps a lock. So I think that with Nchea and Koch obviously covering the bench, they have to be there, no question, because Nchea is just an elite scrummager. He's in my team in the tournament for sure. I think that with Snyman coming in for Mostert, that's just an easy straight swap after Etzebeth got a bit of rest against England. But with, Fourie coming on to replace Khaleesi, I see no reason for another loose forward to be there because you don't want to take off Du Toit since he's that fittest player that they always have on for the full 80. So I think that we're going to see Jean Klein potentially come on for the last couple of minutes or so just to really add a bit of power because being the size of Etzebeth trying to play the full 80, it's exhausting. And so therefore I think we're going to see Jean Klein if there is a 6-2 split. Quagga Smith is an obvious one because of the amount of turnovers he's able to win in that short time off the bench. It's all about technique, not size, and Smith is proof of that. So either way, he is going to be on the bench, I do believe. Anyway, for the back line, well, it's leaked itself, doesn't it? Cheslin Colby, Damien Dialendi, Jesse Creel, Kutli Arenza, and Damien Willemse. Willie Leroux, maybe he could start, but truth be told, with the All Blacks having a bit more bulk in that back line compared to England and a bit more kicking threats in that lineup, it's probably going to be wise to keep Willemse on because you'll want Leroux for the key moments of that game. Think about it. The guys like Talia, Moonga, Geordie Barrett, Will Jordan Bowden Barrett, Aaron Smith, all of them can kick, plus Leonard Brown and Fainga'a-Anuku are also kicking options to bring off the bench. And so they're going to have more of those kicking options on the pitch, especially if Leonard Brown replaces Ioane and then they'll have an entire backline full of kickers. And so if Willemse, gets hurt, blah, blah, you've got your most experienced player to fall back on, while with, of course, Willemse in the starting lineup, you've also got a better defender, so I think of it that way. These are just a few thoughts of mine as to how we could see the teams lining up for the 2023 Rugby World Cup final. After the team sheets do officially come out, I'll be presenting them with the same graphic you can see here on the screen. After they come out, I'm going to make a bit of a video of comparing the forward packs. I want to go through the pack weight, and I also want to potentially look at some of the binding techniques that Oxenchair, for example, is using in the scrum, because I want to see if there's a particular method aside from just pure power, a pure straight back that they're using. I want to see if that's a possible method of the Springboks trying to alter their bind or something. I also want to go over the back line and everything, and I want to examine, the kicking options. I want to examine a few other things after the team sheets do come out. So definitely stick around to check those videos out after the actual team comes out. Cheers for watching this video, guys, as well. Do support me over on Instagram and do become a patron if you can afford it as well. That would be much appreciated. Cheers for watching today's video, and I'll catch you on the next one from Max.